My brother sided with my cheating ex-husband during our divorce. We haven't spoken in 5 years, and now my family wants me to help him out of financial ruin. Hi. So I, 36, female, got divorced from Martin, my ex-husband, 34, male, 5 years ago. We had been together for almost 6 years and married for 2 before we separated. The reason behind our divorce was his infidelity. He confessed to me that he had been having an affair with a coworker for a couple of months right after our 2-year anniversary, and that was it for me. He had said that he wanted to give our marriage another chance and wanted to come clean to me so that we could make it work. But after I found out that he had been cheating, there was no turning back. He moved out because I asked him to, and we got the divorce where I got the house and he got a second wife. As soon as the divorce was finalized, he got married to the coworker he had been having an affair with, a couple of weeks after our divorce finally came through, and then the two of them moved away to Philadelphia. We haven't spoken to each other or seen each other since then, so I'm kind of glad that I did not give him that second chance. The affair, unfortunately, not only ruined my marriage but also my relationship with my brother, and I'll tell you how. So, my younger brother, Nick, 34, male, was pretty close with Martin. They were part of the same friend circle in college, and that's actually how I met him in the first place. But regardless, I'd expected Nick to take my side when we were getting divorced. In spite of their friendship, Martin had cheated on me, and Nick was my brother. So it was natural for me to expect him to understand where I was coming from and be there for me. But when I told my family that I was getting a divorce from Martin because of his infidelity, to my surprise, I found out that Nick already knew about the divorce since Martin had told him about it. His advice to me was that I should stay with Martin and try to work things out because the guy really wanted to make our marriage work. I was shocked that he would even suggest something like this, and I told him that I was not going to stay with him no matter what. I also expressed that I was very disappointed that he was still choosing to stay in touch with Martin in spite of what the guy had put me through because I was quite torn up about the divorce and the affair when I found out about it. So I had expected him to cut Martin off. However, we ended up getting into a fight over that because Nick thought that it was rather unreasonable for me to expect something like this out of him because he and Martin had been friends for a really long time, and it was not his fault that we had chosen to get together, get married, and now we were getting divorced. He said that he would like to stay out of all of this and retain his friendship with Martin, as well as continue having a good relationship with me. I don't know if I was right or wrong, but I thought that it was a very diplomatic stance to take, and I told him that that was not going to fly with me. I made it very clear to him at the time that he could either pick Martin and continue to be in touch with him, or he could have a relationship with me, his sister. And I had obviously expected him to pick me because he and I had been very close growing up, so I was not okay with my brother having any sort of contact with my ex-husband, and I made that very clear to him. To my surprise, he ended up choosing to remain friends with Martin and said that I was being unreasonable. He said that I was being petty and immature, and so he thought that it was better for him to stay around people who actually valued him and were not going to make him choose between people who were both special to him, just to flatter their ego like I was apparently doing. I was very disappointed when that happened, and since then, I have also had no contact with Nick because he really let me down. Then he even attended Martin's second marriage with his affair partner, which was the final nail in the coffin. 5 years passed, and so far I have never spoken to him. Our parents have tried their best to get us to reconcile, but both of us are pretty clear on where we stand. I do visit my parents on the holidays, and he does as well. We do see each other at other family events like weddings and stuff, but we never speak to each other. I don't even have anything to say to him. I keep hearing from my parents about the important things that go on in his life, the milestones and whatnot. So I know that a couple of years ago he started his new graphic design business. Until then, he had been a freelancer and had been doing pretty well for himself, so he decided to start his own business with a couple of his other buddies. It's been 3 years, and from what I heard from my parents, they have been doing decent enough. I thought it was good for them. But then, a couple of days back, I received a phone call from my parents saying that Nick was in a lot of trouble and that they needed me to help him out. Now apparently, Nick had not been entirely truthful with them about how well his business was doing, and now he was drowning in debt and had even been evicted from his apartment since he hadn't paid the rent in the last 6 months. So now he had nowhere to go, and unlike his friends, he was too proud to just move back in with his parents or even ask them to cover his rent. I don't know what to say to that. I just told them that it was really sad for him, and I wish I could help because I thought that's what they wanted me to say, but other than that, I had nothing else. And then they said that maybe I could help him out by letting him live with me instead. As of now, he has no apartment and has been staying with his girlfriend, but she lives with a roommate. So he can't live with them for longer than a couple of weeks, and 1 week has already passed. so he needs to find a place quickly, at least temporarily, so he can just stay there for a couple of months until he's able to get back on his feet. Now apparently, they had offered to let him stay with them, but he had refused, saying that he was not going to move back in with his parents after living apart from them for so long. They also offered to give him money so he could survive on his own, but he had refused that as well. So now they were reaching out to me to help him out. I made it very clear to them that I was not going to reach out to him since we hadn't spoken in 5 years. And not only would it be awkward, but it was also something that I wasn't interested in doing. I had enough on my plate already. I don't feel the need to take on somebody else's problems as well. They insisted that I was the only person who could talk to him and make sense and maybe take my help if I offered it because he and I used to be really close. So I reminded them that we used to be close, but we're not exactly on speaking terms anymore. And I tried to explain to them that if he had refused to take help from them, it was very unlikely that he would accept it from me. But my parents were just not ready to hear me out and kept insisting that I should reach out to him and offer him my help. So ultimately, I had to be very firm, and I told them that I was not going to talk to him, and that was my final decision. Then they started getting all whiny and manipulative on the call and said that I was being very selfish and that I needed to think about my brother instead of being egoistic. Apparently, according to them, my ego had already ruined our relationship once, and I was about to let it happen again by not even bothering to talk to him when he was at his lowest. They think that talking to him would make a lot of difference because when we used to be on good terms, he used to idolize me. I could tell that they were trying to manipulate me emotionally, but I'm afraid that it didn't work. ATA for not reaching out to my brother and offering him my help? Update 1. Okay, so I thought about it and decided against reaching out to my brother. I did some thinking, spoke to a couple of friends, read the comments on my post, and everybody was of the same opinion. That what my brother had done in the past was incredibly wrong and disrespectful, so I did not owe it to him to reach out and help him out when he hadn't even asked for it. If he contacts me first and asks me to help him out, that's going to be a different conversation. But just because my parents believe that I should reach out to him by myself doesn't mean that I have to do it. It's been 4 days since I last spoke to them, and this morning I called them up to let them know about my decision. Every single day since I put up my original post here, they had been calling and texting me to ask if I had spoken to Nick yet or not, and today I finally had to tell them to back off because I was not going to do what they had asked me to. When I said that, they got all manipulative and tried to tell me that I was the only person who could solve this. So I made it very clear to them that I didn't care if I was the only person. It was not my problem to deal with, and I was not going to involve myself in this unnecessarily. Then my parents said that it was a problem Nick was dealing with, and since he was my brother, it was my problem as well. Apparently, they believe that since we are family, we should all treat each other's problems like our own issues and deal with them accordingly. It's interesting how they said that to me, but they did not have the same opinion back when Nick and I were fighting over what to do with the whole Martin situation. By their logic, if Martin had cheated on me and then was causing havoc in my life, Nick should have immediately cut Martin off because it should have been his problem as well. So it doesn't make sense for them to apply these newfound morals to me but not to him. I even brought these things up with them to ask why they did not have the same opinion when I was going through something. And they had no answer for that. So instead they said that I was twisting their words and that I was just looking for an excuse not to help my brother out, and it was extremely selfish and disgraceful. That's when they did not have anything for themselves or Nick and were just trying to make me look like the bad guy. So I told them that I was fine with doing selfish and disgraceful things, but for now I had made up my mind and I told them to stop bothering me. I thought that it would be the end of the conversation, and I was about to hang up as well, but then my mother said something, and that really pissed me off. She said that she had always known that I had a massive ego, and that was probably a failing in their own parenting skills. But she had never expected me to turn out to be so heartless, and said that maybe Nick was right for choosing Martin over me. Everybody knows that that's my sore spot, and I really don't like people bringing that up, so I knew that she had chosen to bring it up on purpose because she wanted to hurt me by what she said, and she had succeeded. It really pissed me off. I was very upset when I heard that, so I immediately forgot about hanging up and confronted her about what she had said. I literally yelled at her because I had lost my temper and said that she had no right to say things like that when she knew very well that what had happened with Martin and Nick was not right. There was just no justification for it. She tried to defend herself by saying that she knew that what Nick had done back then was wrong, but judging by the way I was acting now, she was forced to think that maybe it was the right choice to make in the long run because clearly I was too selfish to think about anybody but myself. It was so frustrating to even have that conversation with her because they were so blind and idiotic. But I was so angry at that moment that I didn't even realize it was pointless to argue with them. I just wanted to get all the anger out of my system and keep yelling at them until they admitted that they were wrong for what they had said. So we kept arguing for almost 15 minutes. My parents kept calling me selfish, and I said that they were disrespectful and only cared about my brother but not my feelings. At the end of the argument, I just told them that I never wanted to speak to them or hear from them ever again, and I was done. Then I finally hung up and blocked their phone numbers immediately. And since then, I've been trying to calm down, but it's very difficult because I've been so riled up since that conversation. I texted a couple of my friends to vent about my feelings, and they said that I was right to block them and that if they tried to contact me again, I should just not respond to them because they have made their priorities very clear, and I don't need to entertain any of this anymore. I have a life of my own, problems of my own, so I should just focus on that, and I guess I'm going to do that now. I have given enough time and energy to these people, way more than they deserve. Update 2, so it's been a week since I blocked my parents, and since then we have not had any contact. I assumed that they would quit and not bother me anymore after I had blocked them and made it so clear to them that I was not going to give them what they wanted. But today, after I came back home from work, I saw that my parents had pulled up to my house and were waiting outside. I'd had a long day at work and had been swamped, so I was pretty exhausted, and I was in no mood to deal with any of this. So as soon as I pulled up to the front of my house, I honked twice and told them to get out of here, or I'd call the cops on them for trespassing. Instead of leaving, they came up to my car and said that they wanted to speak to me, and they were really not in the mood to fight with me right now. So I just needed to give them some time and come out instead of acting like this. I was exhausted. I really was not in the mood to discuss anything to do with Nick right now, so I really wanted them to leave, and I promised I would unblock them and speak to them later, but right now, I needed my space and time. But then they told me that Nick had moved back in with them because right now he had no choice. His girlfriend had made it very clear that she could not let him stay with her for more than 2 weeks. And 2 weeks had already passed. So he had tried to speak to her and get her to extend it, but she told him that her roommates were not fine with this. So he needed to leave since she had made a promise to them that she would not let him live with her for more than 2 weeks and this was only temporary. But after that, if he continued to stay with her, he would have to split the rent and the cost of everything else with them since she couldn't just allow him to live with them for free just because he was her boyfriend. And they got into a fight over that because Nick thought that she was being unreasonable and that she should have been more considerate about his position since he was having to shut down his business and did not have a source of income right now, so now he can't even go back there anymore. Again, it was sad, but it had nothing to do with me, so I told my parents I was still not going to talk to him and let him live with me if that's what they were here for. So they told me that that's not why they were here. They were here to actually ask me for financial help, because now that Nick had moved back in with them, they were going to have to cover the cost of everything. And both of them were retired, so they couldn't afford to exactly support him without worrying about their own future, and they do not want to overexert themselves. So they were asking me to help them out financially. They said that I wouldn't even have to speak to Nick. I just had to give some money to them for the next couple of months until Nick was able to get back on his feet. This time, they expected me to agree without much of a fuss since they said that they had done a lot for me over the years and had raised me to be capable enough to do well for myself right now. So I owed it to them to help them out when they were asking for it. I did not want to say anything, so I said that I had to think about it and let them know because right then, I was very tired from work and I was not going to make a decision at that very moment. I thought it was pretty reasonable to ask for some time to think because what they were asking from me was a big deal. For starters, I didn't even know what kind of amount I would have to send every month, and on top of that, there was no telling when or even if Nick would be able to get back on his own 2 feet soon enough. So I needed to think about this before I made any commitment, and I needed time for that. But instead of giving me that time and respecting what I had said, they decided to start pressuring me right there. I was literally sitting in the car, and they kept saying that I had to do this, I owed it to them and stuff, and that was pissing me off more and more. So I got out of my car and told them that I had had enough of their BS, and they had to clear out or I would really call the cops. They thought that I was bluffing and said that they knew I was not going to do anything of the sort, so I told them not to test me and gave them one final warning. But even then, they did not leave, so I whipped my phone out and called the cops, like I said I would. I did it right in front of them, and the look of shock on their faces was worth seeing. Then they were so stupid that instead of just leaving and saving themselves, they decided to stand there and argue with me until the cops came and had to drag them off. Anyway, it's over now. I'm keeping them blocked. I have also spoken to my lawyer. And I think that we are going to have to file for a restraining order against them because things are getting out of hand. I can't deal with this again and again. Update 3. Hi. So a couple of days back, I had my parents show up at my house, and I said that I was going to file for a restraining order. Yesterday, I finally spoke to my lawyer, and we decided that we were going to go ahead with it, and today we filed the petition. I honestly hope that I am able to get the protective order against them because what they've been doing is getting out of hand. I had blocked them quite some time ago, so they couldn't exactly contact me normally, and that's why I guess they decided to harass me in other ways. I don't exactly know how they managed to do it. They probably paid somebody or something, but ever since I called the cops on them, things have been going pretty weirdly. That day itself, nothing really happened, but the next day, I started receiving calls from a bunch of numbers. I answered the phone calls a couple of times at first, but as soon as I would pick up the phone, they would hang up from the other end, so I blocked the phone number. But then the same thing started happening with other numbers, and eventually, I decided not to answer any calls from numbers I did not recognize because it was getting really weird and creepy. As if that was not bad enough, I started receiving messages from these numbers as well, saying that I would have to face the consequences of what I had done and that my parents were never going to forgive me. There was also a lot of name-calling involved, where I was being addressed as a selfish brat and whatnot, and some curse words that I will not be repeating here since they were just that bad. I know for a fact that it's my parents behind this, and that was all the more reason for me to go to my lawyer and file for a restraining order because I don't think that any of this is normal. After this, I don't think they should expect any sort of help from me at all. I have been trying to respect the fact that we were family and was not taking any sort of action against them earlier. But now I don't think I need to care about them, since they clearly don't care about my mental health or well-being. It's just very disappointing since they know that I've been through a lot in the past, what with my divorce from Martin. And for a couple of years after that, I was not doing particularly well in my career either. So I've had my fair share of problems. And now, when I'm finally doing well, it seems like they can't stand it and want to pull me down. I can't imagine claiming to love your child and acting like this, but I guess they don't really love me, and it's fine. I have accepted that. It doesn't matter to me. Update 4, so it's been a couple of weeks since my last update and long. Story short, I managed to get a restraining order against my parents. There was a lot of fighting, but I did get it. I'm really glad about it because, from what I know, Nick is no longer living with them because of how psychotic they have been acting. I was pretty busy with work since I've just taken on a new project, so I did not have time to post any new updates. Anyway, after my parents were served, they could not contact me because it would be too dicey, especially after everything that they had already done. So I guess they decided to talk to Nick about it, and he was the one who contacted me. I had never blocked him. I didn't feel the need to, because after we stopped speaking to each other, I didn't think that either of us would reach out, so there was no point in blocking each other. Also, I just kind of forgot about it. Anyway, he messaged me saying that he was really disappointed I had taken such an extreme step against our parents after everything that they had done for us. It was the same old routine. He reminded me that they had raised us to be the people that we are now, and we should be grateful to them, but I was being insolent and disrespectful. I got very pissed off when I read that message because it was just so pretentious, and I told him that it was obviously easier for him to say that since they were going above and beyond in their attempts to help him out. I guess he also wanted to have a go at me and call me selfish and entitled for not helping him out with the money that he required. In response to that message, he replied, saying that he had never asked me to help him out, and he would never even expect it from me because I was really that selfish. So I told him he did not need to ask me for it because our parents were doing all the talking on his behalf already. So if he wanted somebody to blame for the situation, he could just look in the mirror. And I guess he was not aware of the fact that our parents had been hounding me to help him out for so long because when I sent that message, he immediately called me up. I answered the phone because I really just wanted to talk about this and get it over with. So he asked me what I was talking about because he did not recall telling our parents that he wanted any sort of help. I told him about everything that had happened, and he hung up abruptly as soon as I was done. I sort of knew that Nick probably wouldn't have known how our parents had been hounding me and disturbing me all this while. So I decided to bring it up with him on purpose. After that, I did not hear back from him. But I heard from other people in the family that apparently Nick had moved out of the house and was now living with a friend of his instead of his parents, because he had realized that our parents had been asking me to help them with money so they could help him out. And initially, they had even been asking me to reach out to him and offer him my help, which clearly meant that they thought he was incapable of handling the situation on his own. And apparently, he believed that this was an attack on him and his capabilities, and so they got into a really nasty fight. How exactly did my relatives find out about this? Obviously, my parents were the ones who had been crying about how I had not only ruined my relationship with everybody around me, but now I had gone out of my way to speak out of turn and managed to brainwash my brother against them as well. So a couple of my family members who had been contacted by my parents came to me and said that what I was doing was very wrong. So I decided to make this known to them as well. After everybody knew the real and whole story, including what my parents had done to me, which had warranted these actions from my end. They seemed to realize that maybe I was not in the wrong and apologized to me for attacking me without knowing the full story. So now basically nobody from the family is speaking to my parents, and they have kind of been ostracized by everyone. I can't say that they don't deserve it because, after everything that my parents have put me through, I definitely think that this is exactly what needed to happen. Nobody speaks to them anymore, and I'm sure that they blame me for it, but unfortunately, because of the restraining order, they can't even do anything about it. But that does not mean that Nick and I are suddenly on good terms again. We are still no contact with each other, and that's the way it's going to be until he realizes how he had screwed up in the past. But given his attitude towards life, I highly doubt that it's going to happen anytime soon. He's always going to be too proud and invested to admit his own mistakes, and that's just like our parents. It's so typical. But whatever. As long as my life is going well, I don't need to bother myself with any of this now. I'm just going to focus on my new projects and living well, and that's it.